Welcome to Mallett and Michelle on Dripping Springs, hosted by me, Michelle Lewis, and Steve Mallett.
Well, hello, Michelle
Hi,
Lewis.
Steve Mallett.
Come on down.
Come on down.
You know what that's from? Bob Barker just passed away.
I know. I saw that. He was 99.
99, I know.
He was $1 short.
I feel bad for him. And, well, he had a great life.
He did have a great life, and he was a great proponent of animals and animal rescue.
He donated a lot of money. I wasn't even planning to talk about that. That just came out.
Well, there you go.
Hey, it's a big day, Michelle.
It is a big day, and because it is a very big day because M. Elliott Studios
is joining us as an advertiser.
Yes.
Yeah, M. Elliott Studios, led by Montana Elliott. She's the principal designer. They do everything from the concept to creation to procurement when you're doing a remodel or building your custom forever home. Really excited to be partnered with them, and Montana and her crew do some really cool stuff.
You know what I'm most excited about?
Besides Montana?
Montana is redoing our studio.
That's right. Yes. That was a cool experience, wasn't it? She came in and spent about an hour and a half with us, and we talked with her about what we wanted to see and how we envisioned it. She gave us some feedback, and then she sent us a whole package with design drawings and the exact furniture that we need, and the dimensions and colors and where to get the stuff. It was really a very, very cool experience.
You know, I'm a stager, and I have been for a little over 10 years now, and people don't understand the difference between being a stager / decorator versus a designer. Yeah. And I've told Montana what she does, I could not do because there's so much math involved with it.
Well, yeah, there's architectural things involved. There's space planning. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a whole different level compared to staging or somebody that comes in and just designs your house just to show better or whatever. This is actually planning out every step of the process so that your house is something you can be proud of and be very comfortable living in when you're done, when it's finished.
The difference to me is when people ask me about that, like, I was like, no, I'm a stager. And so they do what I want.
Yeah.
A designer does what you want.
That's true.
I want to do what I want. That's right. So there's the difference.
Well, anyway, look for more on M. Elliott Studios, and there'll be some ads on there. But remember, we can only make the show better if we have some revenue from these ads. So we're excited about that.
That's right. That's right. And is it hot enough out there for you, Steve?
It's actually cooling down a little bit.
Well, my upstairs AC just went out, and thank God for Barton Creek AC. Johnny has always come in clutch for us. He has cobbled together our little 18-year-old AC unit, and I just want to thank him very much for that and Barton Creek.
Johnny's awesome. Yeah, they have pulled us out of many emergencies, haven't they?
So much. But Austin, in Austin proper, the Austin officials have extended the wildfire disaster declaration. It's, you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Have you seen on right by Polo Club and I don't even know what happened there.
You know what usually happens on those when the ground's really dry? There's somebody
pulls
dragging
over.
it. No, well, there's that, but it's usually somebody dragging a chain or something that's dragging on the ground, and it makes little sparks, and one of those sparks goes off in that grass and catches it on fire. Because that stuff's like tinder right now.
Yeah, we had a fire this past weekend off of 1826 Darden Hill. Right around there.
Yep.
And then that Hayes Oak Grove fire that was like 400 acres a couple of weeks ago. I know that a 75-year-old vet lost his home.
Oh, I didn't hear about
in that fire. But yeah, people, it's hot out there. Be careful where you park. Don't park on the grass too.
Yeah.
If you're at football practice, baseball practice, whatever, don't park on the grass and leave your car on and
don't do any burn piles.
Yeah, don't do any burn piles.
We need a ton of rain before we can do those.
Maybe it broke. Maybe the 100-degree temperatures have broken.
Oh, I sure hope so. Actually, when I ran yesterday, it was a tad bit cooler, which is really nice. I can't wait for those. Actually, 50-degree days would be nice, but geez, I'll take anything at this point. We get asked a lot, people asking us when they come to Austin, what they should go visit. I mean, it just, when you live here, that's what people say.
They don't ask, they don't ask you, do you? Because you don't go anywhere except.
I do too.
Where do you go?
I go downtown.
Can you run downtown?
Well, I know. Okay. I have a list of Austin landmarks.
Okay, let's. I want to hear them, and I want to hear how many places you've been and how many places I've been.
Seaholm Power Plant.
Been there. I go there once a month because that's where I get my hair done.
That's where you get your hair done. I've been there. That's where Trader Joe's is.
Well, yeah, but you've run around there, right?
Many, many times. Okay, but I've been there to Trader Joe's.
Okay.
The Willie Nelson statue.
Oh, yeah, been there.
Man, that's a cool. I think that's, if you're coming to Austin, you got to do that. Zilker Park, obviously.
We've been there.
I was just there Saturday.
Okay, I'll give it to you.
How about the moon towers? Going around and seeing the moon towers. UT Tower.
Duh.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Okay. Have you? Have you been right by the UT Tower?
I've been right by it. I haven't been up in it.
Yeah, especially when school's going on, you can't find any parking down there anyway.
Yeah. So. Texas State Capitol, obviously.
You know what? My neighbors behind me, love them. They've been here 2 years, and they have not been there yet. And so we said,
we're cool building.
But he's dealing with some back issues, and we said, as soon as your back is healed, we're going to go take him down there.
Even if you don't go inside, you just walk around on the outside. It's a very cool building. It's really neat. Yeah, and just read a little history on it before you go, because there's some very cool things.
And the governor's mansion's like catty corner.
That's right. That's right. Blanton Museum of Art.
Yes, been there.
Did you know that the Blanton Museum is 189,000 square feet?
Really?
I guess it covers a big part of the campus there because it's inside and outside. I bet I know someplace I have been that you haven't. The new Waterloo Park. Have you been to that?
No, I haven't.
Downtown? You guys need to make a trip. It's right downtown. It's northeast of the Capitol.
Okay, you just said northeast, and that my eyes glazed over.
You stand and look at the front of the Capitol, and you put your hand at 2 o'clock, and you go that way about a half a mile, and you'll be in Waterloo Park.
Okay, perfect.
And
it's a new park?
Well, I guess there was a little park there before, but this is brand new. There's some concrete walking trails in there. There's a music venue. There's tons of different little playgrounds.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
when it's cooler.
There's a creek that runs through there, and the trail just goes on both sides of the creek. It's really pretty.
Okay, I'll go there.
Pennybacker Bridge.
Yes. Have you ever climbed where you're not supposed to climb and go down there and get your picture taken?
Up on top of the rocks? Yeah. No, I have not done that. Yeah. Have you done that?
No, me either. Yes, I have.
Oh, yeah. You're going to get arrested. Obviously, Mountain Bunnell.
Yes.
Mount Bunnell.
Mount Bunnell.
My friend Pina always calls it Mountain Bunnell, so that's why I said Congress Avenue Bridge.
Yes.
Even if the bats aren't out, that's an Austin icon.
I've been there I've been underneath it, on top of it, around it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to go see that. And then, even though these are in other parts of the country, I've got a story on this. Whole Foods, the flagship Whole Foods.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's right downtown. They've got the little ATX sign out front. That's probably one of the most popular pictures on Instagram.
The most fascinating thing to me about that grocery store is when they first opened was the 2-story grocery store, and your grocery cart would go up on the little escalator.
That's right. Yeah.
Do you know that HEB has one like that now? There's a newer HEB.
Probably the one over there
Lamar or something.
I bet it's the one at the corner of Expo and Lake Austin Boulevard.
That may be
that's
it.
A 2-story.
Yeah.
One. But when people come here to Dripping Springs, so those are Austin attractions.
Mm-hmm.
What do if somebody says, "Hey, I'm coming to Dripping, and I don't want to go to breweries and wineries because I don't drink."
Go to Pigpen.
Pigpen is good, but what do you think the Dripping Springs attractions are?
Besides the breweries and the wineries?
Yeah, I think that's probably why most people come. But what if you're not really into that?
Mercer Street? I don't know. I don't really think.
I got a couple. I think the Pound House, which isn't. It's not super spectacular, but it's a big part of history here for Dripping Springs.
But it's not. Yeah. Okay.
I think that's as interesting as some of the things from Austin.
Yeah.
The original Salt Lick.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's Driftwood, but yeah, for sure.
But still, it's kind of a Dripping Springs history. I think Time and Dough. And the reason is,
you're naming businesses, not necessarily landmarks. So you named landmarks in Austin.
Yeah, but
what are we don't really have any.
I don't know that we have any that
the farmers market.
The farmers market's very cool. The reason I said Time and Dough is because that's one of the oldest homes in Dripping Springs.
Oh,
that was here before the city.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a destination. Maybe it is. It's like I love Time and Doe. We go there probably once a week.
Yeah.
And
Fabienne.
Oh gosh,
fantastic.
I absolutely love it.
Fabienne.
But I would think like destination. Yeah. Maybe the closest thing would be Pedernales, but that's not even drip, right? Or people say Hamilton Pool, but that's not even really drip either. I don't know. Maybe my house. People come to my house to Michelle's
that's
pool.
already happening. Yeah, there's this lady, Michelle Lewis. She has a party every weekend.
What am I having this weekend? A Mrs. Roper party.
Mrs. Roper party, which I didn't even know what that was. And so please pray for me. I have no idea how that's going to go. But yeah, I mean, we have all these historic buildings which you could drive around. Eventually, I think Old Fitzhugh, when they do the improvement there, the TERS project improvement, I think that will be a destination. People will say, you got to go to Dripping Springs and walk up and down Old Fitzhugh Road.
Yeah, I think it's more right now businesses that are the destination versus the actual city
but there's some
itself.
cool businesses here that are, like you said, Pigpen. I think that's an experience in itself. Just going in there, they've done a great job.
Oh my gosh! Every time we go almost every Tuesday, so I love it. Yeah. Oh, but speaking of, we go every Tuesday to feed ourselves. It's our tradition. But you know what? I don't like people feeding deer. Stop.
Oh dear! Why is
feeding the friggin' deer? Stop.
Are you having a problem with that?
In my neighborhood, we have some people that feed the deer corn. Well, first off, deer corn is junk food for the deer. So if you really care about the deer, stop feeding them deer corn, right? Number one, because they're herbivores. They like leaves and acorns and whatever's in my flower bed. Mm-hmm. Okay, so there's that. But you're going to I'm going to screw this word up. Desynthesize. Say it again.
Sensitize.
Desensitize.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that word.
Good job.
They're going to desensitize them. Thank you very much. But they're more prone to, when they're around humans more, they're more prone to jumping out in front of your car or your property damage. But you're also leading them prone to disease because you're feeding them stuff. But they're I don't know. Just stop feeding. This guy came back at me. I didn't come back
on
at him.
Facebook?
Shocking.
Oh, that's never happened.
Yeah, I didn't go back at him, but I was like, stop feeding the deer. And he was like, I'm going to feed the deer, blah, 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 blah.
But it attracts more into the neighborhood. You're more likely to hit one early in the morning. You're more likely to get your plants chewed up.
Well, they
can be a nuisance.
They can be a nuisance, a pest. There are 5.3 million white-tailed deer in Texas.
You said that. I actually think that's less. That's less than I would have expected. I figured there was a deer for at least every person in Texas, which there's almost 30 million people in Texas.
Well, that's the white-tailed deer. But you know that you can't, in the city of Austin, you cannot keep a deer as a pet. That was one thing. I think
that's in Texas.
So I was... I try to do a little deep dive on Hays County, Dripping Springs, and it's kind of like goes by neighborhood depending, and of course where I live.
I think it's a Texas law. You can't keep a deer. Like you can't have them as.
I don't know if that's actually true. I think it's per city ordinance or whatever. But
email Michelle at Mallett and Michelle at gmail.com.
Go ahead. In 2009, the city of Austin made it illegal to feed the deer intentionally. So I know in Lakeway they were having issues, but look, deer season's on the way. September 30th through November 3rd is archery only. November 4th through January 7th is the general season. I think you think you're doing a good thing by feeding these wild animals, and you're forgetting that they are wild animals, and you do not want these wild animals to become human dependent. And so if you want to try to keep them away from your property, like I do, you can put smelly things out, like smelly plants, like mint and azaleas.
Mint
and stuff.
Keeps them away?
Yeah, they don't like the smelly stuff. But some of the other things I've seen is shaved Irish Spring, human hair, I guess.
Oh, I didn't know that.
What we used to do for my impatiens is when my boys were little, I used to go have them pee on the impatiens.
That doesn't kill them?
I didn't. My patients were great, but it kept the deer away. But I
think they sell stuff in stores that's like coyote urine or something.
But see, that's the thing.
I don't know if that works or
now
not.
you're just attracting the coyotes.
Are you attracting them?
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
I mean, think about it, right? I don't know, but just come on, people, stop feeding the deer. Yeah. Stop it.
Hey, I mentioned a second ago about Whole Foods Market, and I came across a story this week that I thought was kind of interesting. Do you know much about the history of Whole Foods?
I know it's overpriced and
yeah, sometimes known as whole paycheck.
Yeah, that's funny. I've never heard of that.
You've never heard that?
No, that's funny.
Oh, yeah. God. I actually, when I said that, I was like, oh, everybody's heard that.
I went to the Whole Foods in San Francisco weekend before last, and it was really nice.
So do they have the new thing where you can go in and you don't have to check out? Like everything, the cameras are all watching you, and so you just walk out and it charges your credit card?
Oh, they had another little section. I don't know if that's what that was for. I didn't, because we went later at night.
They have this they call it just walk out technology.
Well, I know that I paid $12 for toothpaste.
Oh, I believe
$12. $12.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Whole Foods started in 1978. John Mackey, who is still with Whole Foods, and Renee Lawson, who was 21 years old at the time, they borrowed $45,000 between them to start a small natural grocery store called Saferway in 1978. And they were having stuff delivered to their apartment, and they got kicked out of their apartment because they said you can't keep having frozen foods and stuff delivered to your apartment. So they actually lived in the store for a period of time.
Oh, that's funny.
And bathed in the dishwashing sink that they had in the back. There was like I know, but you know, hey, life of an entrepreneur, right? Just starting up a new business, you do what you got to do. I think that's pretty cool. In 1980, they merged with Clarksville Natural Grocery.
Oh yeah, I remember that place.
Yeah, and then those two together, they called it Whole Foods Market.
Clarksville is still there, isn't it?
Might be, I don't know. And so they opened up their first store September 20th, 1980, Whole Foods Market. They had a 10,500 square foot store and 19 employees, which for the time was actually a really big, what they called a health food store.
Where was it? Do you know where it was?
You know what? I looked for that and I couldn't find it. I don't think it's at the same location it is now, but that location is probably one of the most prime pieces of real estate in Austin.
And it's a grocery store. Isn't that funny?
I know, but it does so much more, right? They have the ice skating up on the roof.
Yeah, I would take the kids out there. Yeah, the ice skating was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think there are people that come here that go to Whole Foods because it's not in every state. You know, if you came from Wyoming or something, you might not have ever been in a Whole Foods before. But in 1981, there was this huge devastating flood in Austin, and the entire inventory of the store, $400,000 worth of stuff, was ruined. Yeah, almost drove them out of business. And interesting, the community came out, people volunteered to help clean up the store and get everything back up and running. Just the people in the community. I think that's very cool. That's Austin, right? And they were able to get the business back up and going. They didn't have insurance, so I don't know how.
Don't you miss those days of like just? I mean, I still think there's, you know, people miss that about Austin, but I still think if you look hard enough, that community charm is out there. It's just the yucky people are noisier.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, the 1 or 2% are the ones that are always complaining and griping. Well, in 1984, they started expanding out of Austin into Houston and Dallas. And in 1989, they've opened their first store in California in Palo Alto.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So, and then in the 90s, they started buying other grocery stores. And there was a whole long list of grocery stores that they had acquired over the years. And in 2001, they opened their first store in Manhattan, which I guess was a big news story because I guess stores like that have a hard time opening in Manhattan.
I'm an H-E-B purist. So
I love H-E-B.
I can't leave Texas.
Do you think we need a Whole Foods in Dripping Springs?
No.
And if we had one, could we support it?
No, we need a Trader Joe's. I would choose like Trader Joe's over Whole Foods.
Yeah, if you're listening, Trader Joe's, please.
Trader Joe's. Yeah. And a TJ Maxx.
And a TJ Maxx. So now they have several stores in several states, and they have stores in the UK too, which we saw some. I think it was in London.
Really in the UK?
Yep. And end the story with they sold the business to Amazon in 2017 for $13.7 billion
little chump
from
change.
their $45,000 investment in 1978.
From washing themselves in the sink.
Yeah.
To.
And as far as I know, John Mackey still works for them. Like, if you had a payout like that, I'd never see you again.
You'd never see me.
I would never see
again.
I'd be like, hey, I had this lady, Michelle. She worked with us for a while. And then just one day I never talked to her again.
If someone gave me $10 for the podcast, you would never see it.
Shut up. Well, there you go. Whole Foods. You can still go there and spend a fortune, spend your whole paycheck. So, well, hey, let's take a little break. We didn't actually talk about our guest. We've got a very exciting guest coming in.
Yes, Jennifer Ziegler. She's the founding member of Patients for Stem Cells. And her story is very, very interesting. She's an MS sufferer, and it's about her journey through stem cells. And when I was kind of researching stem cells, there's so much about it that I don't understand.
Yeah,
and I don't know. And so I'm interested to hear her story and see what she has to say.
Yeah, me too. I think she's going to fill us in. She sat on some boards and testified in front of the Texas Medical Board. So I bet she has some great information, and we're going to pick her brain about it. So let's take a little break and get Jennifer in here. Interior design should be an investment in your life and home. Let M. Elliott Studio transform your space, where interior design meets excellence in Central Texas.
Beyond just selecting colors and furnishings, team principal and owner, Montana Elliott, is a trained and licensed interior designer.
With her knowledge of architectural principles, building codes, space planning, and design theory, her team will work with you to understand your needs and lifestyle.
From concept to completion, M. Elliott Studio is committed to enhancing your space with a timeless and classic style.
Ready to redefine your space?
melliottstudio.com, 512-781-0224.
This portion of the show is brought to you by the Mallett Integrity Team of real estate professionals. They are based in Dripping Springs and bring you over 45 years of combined experience helping people reach their hill country real estate dreams. When you want the best in town, call them at 512-829-2062 or look them up at mallettintegrityteam.com. And now, here's Steve and Michelle.
All right, we're back with Jennifer Ziegler. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're excited to have you on.
Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Michelle.
I feel like we need to explain that now. I made us redo it because Michelle just sat there thinking about something else for a second.
No, I didn't know I was going to talk.
Oh, well.
Shocking. Okay. I didn't know you were going to let me talk.
Yeah, I may not now.
There you go.
Well, Jennifer, tell us how you ended up in Dripping Springs.
Well, it has to do with my husband getting transferred all over the country with his job. Oh. And so he was going to go into coaching because he was a college football player and played a small stint in the pros and had a job offer from his position coach to coach in Starkville, Mississippi. And he came home and he said, I don't want to move you all over the country. But then he took a job with Koch Industries. That moved us all over the country. Oh, so anyway, we landed in Austin, fell in love with it, and you couldn't get me to leave for anything. Dripping Springs, not Austin.
Yeah.
But, we came with animals, horses, cats, dogs. So we had to find property. So we literally did a circle around Austin looking for a community that would support. Wayne rodeoed as a hobby, calf rope, team rope. And so we were looking for a community that would support those types of activities and found Dripping Springs and fell in love with it. And the schools were great. And I had small children at the time.
Where did you originally come from?
I'm originally from Shawnee, Kansas, which is just a suburb of Kansas City. So my husband and I both went to the University of Kansas.
And I discovered also in my little deep dive that you were a Kansas City Chief cheerleader.
I was a University of Kansas cheerleader first, and then tried out for the Chiefs, and it was a collegiate style squad, so it was right up my alley. So my partner and I went. There were actually three partners, so 6 people. We went and tried out, and we all made it.
Wow!
And so it was a blast. Like
How long did you do that?
I did that for a year. Yeah. I was actually married at the time. So then we moved. And so I didn't try out the second year because we were in Missouri then.
Did you really enjoy that, being out on the field?
It was a blast. We got to see all the behind the scenes. We got to go into the locker rooms. We got to go into the weight rooms and train. We got to use the same trainers that the football players used. And
are you invited back now? Like if they have things?
They had like a reunion. I did not go because it's a little far. And I got stuff going on.
What?
Kansas isn't far.
How fun.
Especially since you've lived all over the place.
No, but it was a wonderful time in my life. I think, not many people get to experience that behind the scenes.
Do you still have your uniform?
I still have some shorts and a jacket, and the uniforms weren't ours.
Oh.
So, yeah. And we got paid $75 a game.
Oh, my God.
So compared to what the NFL athletes were being paid, we were nothing.
I don't think they get paid any much more now. Right? I think it's crazy the amount. That's a really cool story, though.
Yeah, but it was a wonderful time in my life.
And your husband played football for the University of Kansas?
He did. He played free safety and was there for 5 years. He was a redshirt freshman and went in as a quarterback, but they moved him to free safety. So, yeah, that's where we met. And no, I wasn't a cheerleader when I met him. We just met and started dating and got married really young. We were engaged. I was engaged at 19. He was 20. And when we got married, I was 21. He was 22. Oh, so
how'd your folks take that?
Oh, they loved Wayne.
Oh, really?
They loved him.
I was 22 when I got married. That was
I think that was much more common back then. I think maybe because we're not raising very mature kids these days.
That's probably,
I think a lot of them were like, you're not getting married at 21. You're still a kid.
His friends from high school were worried about him because they were all married right out of high school. And they were like, what is wrong with you? You are not married yet. And you're 20 and 21.
And how long have y'all been married now?
We've been married for 38 years.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's wonderful. I just celebrated my 30th also. So, yeah, proponent to getting married young.
Yes. And I just love couples who love each other. That is so important.
Yeah.
So
I'm with you on that. I hate when I see somebody that's been married a long time and that one of the spouses says like behind the other's back, like, it's like, oh, come on.
The Bickersons, that's what I call them. It's like, it's
show
the
each
Bickersons.
other love. You'll get along a lot better if you show each other love. Well, and then at some point you were diagnosed with MS. Tell us about that.
I was. So I was home. I had a breakfast casserole in the oven. Wayne was out of town most of the time. So I woke up and I had this very odd sensation in my face, down the left side of my face, neck, and into my left arm.
How old were you at this time?
I was 39.
Okay.
And so I thought, this is not normal. Am I having a heart attack or a stroke? That was where my brain went. And so called EMS. They came out immediately and hauled me off. My youngest son went to school and told everybody I'd had a heart attack.
Great.
So
how old is he at the time?
They were little. So they were probably 4th and 5th grade.
Wow.
But I was very worried about how my kids were going to get to school that day because Wayne was out of town. And the ambulance driver, we lived in a very small community at the time, told me he'd come back and get them and take them to school.
No way.
Yep.
Oh,
yep.
That's awesome.
So anyway, I had a friend come over. He was very kind, but I had a friend come over and get him. So yeah, I was diagnosed at 39. And
so that event led directly to how long after that event did you get diagnosed?
Within a month.
Really?
So did they find like lesions? Is
actually within 2 months.
Okay.
Yes, they found some white spots in my brain, lesions, and they did a lumbar puncture to draw some spinal fluid out of my spine, and they sent it off to, I think it was Arizona. And it took about a month to get those results, which was crazy. And I was going downhill, waiting to hear. What
was the progression like after you had this weird feeling? What was the next things that happened?
Well, I had to wait to go see a neurologist because you can't just get in the next day. Mm-hmm. And so I I was waiting.
Yeah.
And then it came back positive, but they wanted to repeat the test. So then it took another month. And so finally I got a positive diagnosis and had an absolutely wonderful neurologist, Dr. Kane, who is now retired. And I sat in his office and it was very surreal. They put my brain up on the screen and we looked at it, and he handed me like 5 different pamphlets and 5 different VCR tapes to go home and watch.
I guess he didn't really understand at that time.
No.
MS, I remember hearing from very early on, it's like, oh, the only way they can really diagnose someone truly with MS is an autopsy. That was the old way of diagnosing someone with MS. And the journey that you kind of went on, I'm sure they just tested you to heck.
Well, with the MRIs and the drugs that were offered to me, like I said, he gave me some pamphlets and 5 VCR tapes, and I had to go home and watch each of them. Luckily, my mother watched them with me, and I had to pick a drug.
Oh, wow.
I picked Copaxone because it was the least side effects that I could see, and the integrity profile of the drug seemed the best option for me. And so I injected that drug for 5 years until I was in such severe pain in every joint in my body. And it's hard to tell whether, especially with an early diagnosed person, whether it is the disease itself or is it the drug. Mm-hmm. But anyway, my husband jumped right out there and became a board member of the Lone Star chapter of the MS Society. And I didn't want to have anything to do with anyone that had MS. I didn't want to hear about it. I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to go to a support group whatsoever. I'm like, I can do this. I don't need any help. And that went on for about 3 years. And then Wayne talked me into going to a government relations committee meeting in Dallas. And that was when everything turned around for me. That was when I joined the government relations committee. So I sat on the government relations committee for 3 sessions, and we basically were grassroots advocates lobbying our bills to the 150 senators and I think there's 150 House reps,
Yep.
and 31 senators. Mm-hmm. And they say it takes 3 visits into an office before you really connect with them. So my best friend has MS as well. She lives up in the Fort Worth area, and we met on the government relations committee. And so we spent 3 sessions advocating for the MS Society on the government relations committee. But the only thing that we were starting to run into, was they did not want us to talk about stem cells. And Tracy had already been treated in Costa Rica at the time.
Okay.
And I knew I was going to get a stem cell treatment. There was just no doubt. I went off Copaxone cold turkey one night. She was at my house and I was crying. I was in so much pain. And she said, I don't want you to ever inject that drug again. And I didn't.
And did you discover that the pain you had was caused by the drug?
100%. Within about a week, my pain subsided. It was definitely the drug. But, your doctor tells you if you miss a dose, you're going to relapse. Mm-hmm. And so there's that fear of God that's put into you that if you miss anything, you don't take your drug, you don't inject your drug, that you will become ill again.
Yeah.
And so I really think God and Tracy gave me the courage to just quit cold turkey. And my doctor was 100% for it. He's like, yeah, if you're in that much pain, let's try something different. Although I didn't try anything different. I went a completely different route. I went to Houston at the time, which was a stem cell clinic down in Houston. They were actually treating in the United States. And I was one of 200 patients that were in their first trial.
How did you get introduced into the stem cell world at first?
So while I worked on the government relations committee for the MS Society, I met Tracy, who had already had a stem cell treatment in Costa Rica,
right,
and Preston Walker, a Dallas-Fort Worth police sergeant, who had also had Preston was one of Dr. Reardon's first patients. if not the first patient. But I had these people around me that had had amazing success from this treatment, and I knew someday I was going to do it. Kind of drug my feet a little bit. I wanted to know more information about it. I wanted to know what kind of cells I was going to get treated with. But so that's how I discovered that there was an alternative treatment.
There's a lot of controversy surrounding stem cell treatment in general. And I think for a lot of people out there that don't really kind of understand what stem cells do in your body, can you explain that?
Sure. So I think a lot of the education process comes in when you explain to someone, and we had to re-educate the entire Texas legislative body that we weren't getting embryonic stem cells. I think a lot of people confuse the term embryonic stem cell with umbilical cord cells.
Okay.
And
I think that's very common.
Yeah. So, because the words are,
well, they both say
umbilical,
stem cells,
embryonic. Yeah. And so we really did basically we were up there to educate people on the types of cells that we were getting treated with. My first treatment, I had about 2 teaspoons of adipose fat taken out of my abdomen, and they were grown in a sterile lab down in Houston to a therapeutic dose. And so once they grew to that therapeutic dose, which took about 3 weeks, then I was called down.
So they were your stem cells.
They were my cells out of my fat tissue. Wish they would have taken more. But it basically amounts to about 2 teaspoons.
Okay.
And I made Tracy sit in the operating room with me, and she was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're making me do this."
Oh.
But
they just probably did a tiny little incision, right?
And I asked the doc, I go, "Can I sit up and watch?" Because I'm kind of into that kind of thing. So anyway, so my first treatment was in Houston, and I went down on a Friday. I had some girlfriends here from Dripping Springs that went with me. We kind of made it a fun girls getaway.
Let's go get our stem cell treatment.
Let's go get our stem cell treatment. And we, went to dinner that night before, stayed in a fancy hotel, and tried to make it fun.
And, I kind of circle back to what stem cells are. They're often thought of as the body's master cells. This is from my little generic research. Mm-hmm. And they help form and repair tissue, organs, and blood.
That's correct.
When you're getting your first treatment, what were your expectations on this
and
first?
What was the outcome? Expectations versus outcome.
So let me give you a tiny history. Arnold Kaplan is considered the godfather of mesenchymal stem cells, and some people pronounce it mesenchymal.
I'm so glad you said that, because I actually have that on there, and I butcher words. Say that word again.
Mesenchymal.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But a lot of other people say it mesenchymal.
Okay.
So
I would say it mesenchymal.
Yeah. So mesenchymal stem cells, and stem cells can come from a variety. Adult stem cells can come from a variety of places in your body. It can come from menstrual blood, tooth pulp, your own fat.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's they've been treating animals with them for years. And so I was one of the first 200 patients, like I said before, to go down to Houston. And it really is an IV in a doctor's office. So picture an IV bag.
Okay.
They stick the needle in your arm. You sit there for however long it takes it to drip into your arm, and that's it.
So I'm going back to that. What did you expect would happen, and what actually happened after that treatment?
Well, what I expected to happen was kind of what my friend Tracy had experienced, or what Preston had experienced. So a lot of MS patients have invisible symptoms. Most autoimmune diseases, there's visible symptoms for some people, and then there are invisible symptoms for a lot of people. I had invisible symptoms, which were heat intolerance, bladder issues, just things that people couldn't see. And so
couldn't quantify. It wouldn't show up on a blood test, or you go into a doctor's office. It was subjective.
How many times I heard, "But you look so good." And I had one person say, "Well, I thought you'd be in a wheelchair." And so there's this misconception that, yes, I've been diagnosed with MS, but I have invisible symptoms. So it's kind of hard for the general public to understand that, I'm suffering. You know, I'm not sleeping well. I'm not eating well. You know, I can't go outside. I felt like I had vampire syndrome
where the heat, you really,
oh my gosh. Really gets to you. The heat. So I could go out after dark or before sunrise. And so that went on for a long time. And so I went to Houston, got my stem cell treatment, and
did you think you're going to wake up in the morning and go, it's all going to be gone?
Some people do. Yeah, I mean, some people do get immediate relief, drop foot, other things, you know. Typically, you'll notice improvement for about 6 months.
Okay.
And so the interesting thing about what happened to me was I got cut off by the FDA in the middle of my treatment.
Oh.
Yeah. So they done messed with the wrong person. Because that
what was the reasoning they used to cut you off?
That it was an unproven therapy. It was experimental, which they have been treating in Panama for years, 2 decades.
Yeah.
Our FDA doesn't really acknowledge things that happen in other countries. They say they're the end all be all. And I'm not slamming our FDA. I mean, it's there for a reason, but I don't know. Maybe I am slamming the FDA.
It's funded almost exclusively by the drug manufacturers.
100%.
Yeah. So there's an incentive actually for them to be pushing people onto
correct
pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Created by these companies.
Absolutely. I mean, if people are like, why aren't you allowed to do this? That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So how come did they target you specifically, or they targeted the study that this doctor out of Houston was doing?
So yes, so it was, the company was called Celltex, and
did they shut them down?
They shut them down.
They were orthopedic doctors, right?
Okay. Well, no, he is a spinal surgeon.
Okay.
So Dr. Jones is a spinal surgeon. Okay. And I just went into Dr. Jones's office, went into one of his rooms, and got my treatment. And on the way home, I get a call from my good friend, Representative Rick Hardcastle, who also has MS. And he was in the legislature for 22 years. And he said, Jenny, I've got some bad news for you, really bad news. You're not going to be able to get the rest of your treatments. And I was supposed to go 3 consecutive Fridays in a row. And so it really was a bit surreal. I didn't particularly believe that was going to happen. I figured they'd call me in a month and go, come on back down.
We got it all straightened out.
Yeah, it's all straightened out. We're good. Come back down for your other 2 treatments. Instead, that was not the case whatsoever. They literally shut them down. So then Bloomberg Newsweek picked up on what was happening to the patients. And so that was really the first article that was done on us, and where it kind of got the word out what was happening to these patients. And I literally called the FDA every single day.
Really?
Sounds like something I would do.
Yes, it does.
I will wear your ass down.
No.
Yeah.
And
did you talk to the same people every day, or were you trying
to talk? Not necessarily, but I never got to talk to Mary Markle, who was the head of basically closing Celltex down. And I talked to her staff quite a bit, and I really wasn't calling on behalf of myself, because I'm using quotes, wasn't that sick. But I knew people who were extremely ill that were also cut off. Mm-hmm. And so I was basically calling them saying, some of these people might die. Do you realize that? And the FDA has something called compassionate care. But that is a really tricky subject, and it's actually very hard to get. They don't grant very many compassionate care cases.
Is this where they would say, okay, for this one case, yes, we're going to make an exception?
And you would have to have a doctor that filled out books worth of paperwork, and doctors just don't want to do that.
No.
Is that kind of where, to kind of jump forward a little bit in the history of this drug, where the Texas right to try? Is that what it's called? Okay.
So our right to try bill was the Andrea Sloan right to try bill.
Is that the HB 810 that you were talking about?
Our HB 810 was an extension of that original right to try bill. So Andrea Sloan worked at the Capitol. She was a beautiful young woman, and she developed ovarian cancer. Our lobbyist, Michelle Wittenberg, who is just an absolute rock star and one of my best friends now, that was her best friend.
Okay.
And so Andrea had ovarian cancer. She went down to MD Anderson, got some treatments, did get a stem cell treatment, but it was too late. Oh. God bless her. Unfortunately, it was too late. She passed away. Oh. And so we named our Right to Try bill the Andrea Sloan Right to Try bill. So when we came into, Michelle asked Tracy and I to jump on board because at the time, House Rep Tan Parker out of Flower Mound was sponsoring a stem cell bill. And she said, we need you guys to come in and testify. And so thinking, okay, we had the experience with the MS committee, with the government relations committee with the MS Society. And so it was kind of a natural progression to go out on our own. And we started a group called Patients for Stem Cells. And it was basically those patients who had been cut off from therapy. And we did a Facebook page, we did a website, we started spreading the word. And we helped pass that session, House Bill 810. It was Charlie. Let me put my glasses on.
I was going to ask you while you're looking for that, was Governor Perry an advocate for you guys? Because I was reading that he was a patient of stem cell.
He was one of the first 200 patients with me.
Really?
Yeah. So Governor Perry had back issues, and he was a friend of Dr. Jones, and so Governor Perry actually was treated at the same place I was treated.
And so the FDA shut him down too.
Correct.
Interesting.
Correct.
Was he governor at the time?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The politics of that.
Oh, man. You have no idea.
Blows my mind, actually.
Yeah. So Charlie's Law, HB 810, we did an extension of that bill, the Andrea Sloan Right to Try, and Charlie Howard was a House rep at the time, and his doctor, he had cancer, and his doctor said the only hope for him was to have a stem cell treatment. And so, unfortunately, Charlie did pass away, and so we named our expanded Right to Try bill after him.
Okay.
And so,
I have a question in regards to the MS. I'm drawing a blank. MS Society, or is that what it's called in the U.S.?
It was the the National MS Society.
The National MS. Is this an approved or a recommended pathway to treatment for them, or
they don't like it?
Oh no, in fact, that's why we got out of the Government Relations Committee.
Really?
And my husband rode in like 10 MS rides. He was the top money winner in Oklahoma because he worked there. He was on the board of the Lone Star Committee chapter, and their funding goes for drug treatments. We dug deep. We dug real deep. We went in and found out who sponsored them, where the money was going, what drugs they were sponsoring. And Tracy and I were not happy because we were verbally told not to talk about stem cell treatments.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting. That's very interesting when you start to doing a little deep dive in that sense.
Yeah.
So my sister has MS, and her diagnosis actually took way longer than yours. She's 59 now. She was diagnosed in her 20s, and I think it took a couple of years for her to be diagnosed. And she had a very similar thing, left side of the body, developed some weakness. But the stem cell treatments, sounds like to me, the stem cell treatments, hers is pretty advanced. It doesn't take you back. It just stops the advance of the MS. Is
not
that right?
necessarily. So adult stem cells, the reason it treats so many conditions is those are little honing cells, and they will travel to areas of your body that are damaged. And so some people walk out of a stem cell treatment and they have improvements in things like their vision or,
really?
Oh yeah. So it's an interesting thing. They treat areas of damage. And so there's so many different conditions that they treat down at the Stem Cell Institute in Panama, which is where I went second, which is Dr. Neil Reardon's clinic. And Neil has written a book called Stem Cell Therapy, A Rising Tide, How Stem Cells Are Disrupting Medicine and Transforming Lives. Because there's really a paradigm shift in medicine. There really is. I mean, you can get treated at an orthopedic clinic with stem cells, and everybody's heard of a bone marrow transplant.
Sure.
Those are stem cells.
I was telling Steve I did that in my neck.
Following up on my question, what would be the downside if somebody did a stem cell treatment and didn't get the relief that they expected or the outcome they expected? What is the downside? Is there harm that can be done to the body?
I have talked to thousands of patients. I mean, that's really what I do, is counsel patients and share information. And so,
have you run into anybody that said, "Oh man, I had my stem cell treatment. It's the biggest mistake I ever made"?
No, not one time.
I bet you asked that same question about the drugs that they give you, and I bet people say a lot. Oh, I wish
100% of the time.
It's so ridiculous.
So the downside of a stem cell treatment might be that you don't get the results you want.
And the cost.
Absolutely, the cost. But there is such a wide variety of cost.
Right.
I mean, clinics do charge different things.
And you've gone out of the country to have treatment as well. And
it was half the cost in Costa Rica that it was
it's half the cost in Panama.
I'm sorry. And so the one treatment you got in Houston, that was out of your pocket. Insurance never covers any of this.
No, and that would kind of be our next step in advocacy, was if this did get approved. So I'm going to go back to H. Bill 810. Texas is the only state in the country that passed an adult stem cell bill.
Wow.
So
why do you think that is?
So I want to clarify that. That means adults can take stem cell treatments. Is that right?
Certain stem cell treatments.
Well, not just adults.
It's the adult.
I know people
the adult refers to where the stem cells come from?
No, adult just refers to the name of the cell.
Oh. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's different types of stem
and you
cells.
are not the first one to
I'm
not understand that.
Okay.
Because people are like, well, why can't kids get it?
Yeah.
And we have to, once again, educate. It's called an adult stem cell. Children have adult stem cells in their body.
Okay.
And so children, and I mean, in Panama, they have treated well over 5,000 autistic children. And that was actually a number from a few years back. They've treated thousands of autistic children. The sooner you can get an autism child to a stem cell treatment, the better results you'll have.
And the understanding behind that is, or the mechanics behind that is, it goes after the damaged cells that are causing the autism in the brain.
Correct.
Or like how, I guess, I know you're not a physician, but
I'm not.
Like the mechanics of injecting a stem cell, how does it know where to go?
It's a honing cell.
Okay.
And so, like I said, they're programmed by the Lord, I guess. You know, they're God's cells. That's what Tracy and I called them, God's, pharmacy. And they hone in on damage in the body, no matter where it is. They travel to the lungs first and then into your body. And the results that I had were I didn't have incontinence anymore. I didn't have heat intolerance. My fatigue was gone. And it's kind of funny because it's subtle when it starts to happen, but my husband noticed. And we lived part-time in Tulsa, Oklahoma, because he worked up there. He commuted to Tulsa for 12 years. And we were walking up this hill, and it was hot outside. And Wayne was like, "Jenny, wow, you just walked up that hill." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I did." And so
this was after you had the treatment in Panama.
Correct.
Because you got the full treatment there.
I got the full treatment. So important if you're wanting to explore an adult stem cell treatment is the types of cells that the clinics treat with. So in Houston, they treat with the adipose fat tissue. In Panama, Dr. Reardon used to treat with adipose fat tissue. That's where he started. But now he treats with BMAC, bone marrow aspirate concentrate, or cells that come from umbilical cords that are donated, given purposefully. So, and those cells from the donated umbilical cords come from, they have to go through the same process the cells in our country go through. They go through the Panamanian FDA for quality and standard, and no diseases are in them, and that type of thing. So they're screened.
Yeah. So it seems like some of the confusion in the public is about that there are aborted fetuses being used for stem cells. And it doesn't sound to me like that's...
Or in vitro...
in
vitro...
Well, because I've heard people arguing, well, no, because stem cells, they're killing children.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying that...
Well,
it's
the whole ethics surrounding the whole stem cell.
Where is that coming from?
That is coming from an industry. We have a stem cell industry in this country. Tracy and I decided early on, after we could not get a treatment in Houston any longer, that we would reach out to our adversaries, I guess you might say. And these were scientists and industry members. And we went into major dialogue with them.
About why they would be opposed to stem cell treatment.
Because any article that came out on us, or any article we participated in, or any podcast we did, we would get slammed back on, even though we were patients and we were just telling our story, that was not a viable treatment and that was dangerous. And there was even some groups in Texas that...
even though they're in your research, quote, research, you didn't run into any person that said they were damaged by stem cell treatment,
Well, I think also,
stem cell treatment.
I think the idea was that all stem cells were coming from embryonic stem cells. So there wasn't an understanding.
There was not an understanding
of the different types of stem cells, because that was kind of one of my questions.
That's not the argument they made. The argument they made was it was dangerous. Like the people that were being treated.
They were making a blanket statement, right? Yeah.
So the industry made a blanket statement multiple times, every article you read, and we realized what was missing was the patient voice. And so our group made it our mission statement to interact with these people and inject a patient voice in there. We went on to LinkedIn. We commented on articles they'd written. We bombarded them with the patient voice. And pretty soon they actually started talking to us.
Oh, that's interesting.
Interesting. And so even though we agreed to disagree, some of these groups were promoting embryonic stem cell treatments, which we absolutely are opposed to. Yeah. I would never get it. Embryonic stem cells are tumorigenic, which
interesting
means, as a baby is developing, those cells are going to turn into a lung, a kidney, your skin, your eyes. Right. And so
there isn't even an advantage to using those.
Not at all. Not at all.
Well, so in some of the research that I was reading, and also it depends on who, what research I was reading, it says that someone called the embryonic stem cells the most powerful yet the most controversial. But the most powerful according to whom? Right? Like, so what would be the advantage?
Most controversial.
Yeah, but what would be the advantage of using an embryonic stem cell? Why was that ever even an option?
There wouldn't be. Now,
is that just something that people and maybe industries that were opposed to it used as the argument because that's very visceral and people can get behind that? Or
I mean, if you want to look at it as somewhat of a nefarious action
pathway.
Mm-hmm. But there was a lot of research done with embryonic stem cells and developing new lungs, or developing, taking a lung cell and growing lungs in a lab.
They can isolate those particular cells. Interesting.
Yes. And so,
but see, my belief, and I was talking to Steve about this earlier, and I said, I'm of the belief that life begins at conception, and
correct.
And
Me too.
taking life to give to another life, it doesn't make sense to me. But now I've read more about the stem cells, and I was actually a patient of stem cell treatment, but I didn't understand what I was getting. Quite honestly, it was during my neck fusion surgery, and but this is very interesting to me. It's how this blanket statement of stem cells, because that's kind of what I believe when President Bush, he passed a law about, you know more than I do what the law was, but about using embryonic stem cells. Yes, you couldn't use. Yes.
But did that make it easier for other stem cell treatments?
Okay, so that goes back to education. So back then we all heard that, right? So now here we are in 2023, and what we remember is embryonic.
Yes.
And so this is nothing associated to that whatsoever, but that's still stuck in people's mind. And so, like one particular house rep's office I went into, and it was the first time we had walked into this particular office. You usually talk to the staff first, and the staff member said, "Oh, no. My boss will never go for this. He's Catholic." And I said, "Well, would you be willing to listen to me? Because I've had a stem cell treatment and I'm Catholic." So,
and they weren't embryonic stem cells.
And they weren't and so once we educated him on
the door to education,
so that's just one example. And honest to goodness, every office, and I'm not kidding, and we went back and did things the old-fashioned way. We got to know the staff first, because that's how you get to the rep or the senator. And so every single office, and I am not exaggerating, somebody would say, "My mother has blah,
X.
blah, blah. My friend has, my grandmother has." And so we made that connection with them, and I wrote that down. And so the next time I would walk into this office, I get to say, "How's your grandma doing?"
Wow.
And so this was back right when Twitter was starting. And we connected with all the legislatures online. And since then, the MS Society adopted what we had done.
Interesting.
Yep.
I was just going to ask you, has the temperature in today's climate, has it changed in regards to stem cell treatment? Is it more universally accepted now?
I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast, and I can't remember who he had on, but he had a guest on that has gone to Panama. He was an athlete, and he has gotten stem cell treatments, and he was talking about all the wonderful effects it's had on his. He had, I think it was a shoulder injury, and he was rehabbing it, and PT and steroid injections, and none of that was working. And he did a stem cell treatment, and within a couple weeks, he was training again.
Right. So I've had every kind of stem cell you can have.
Yeah.
I've had a bone marrow aspirate repair my ACL tear. I was skiing. And I was jumping out of the way of a snowboarder that was headed right towards me, and I tore my ACL. So I called Dr. Reardon. Well, first we were in Tulsa at the time, and first I contacted my husband's bike physician. And
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. And he wanted me to go the typical route where I would have another injury by removing part of a tendon or receiving a cadaver tendon. And I was not comfortable with that. So I called Dr. Reardon, and I went to his orthopedic clinic in South Lake, Texas, up near Dallas. And I had an ACL repair using a bone marrow aspirate from my hip. And man, I couldn't even tell they had taken it.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And so they treat all kinds of things up there, and then if you need further treatment, expanded cells. So there's a difference between what we can do in the United States and an expanded cell therapy, which is what we do in Panama, where they grow the cells to a therapeutic dose like I had mentioned before. So
I want to go on to my next question, but the healthcare system that we have in this country is so broken.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why, as a country, we put up with this where, and I'm going to go off on a little tangent here, but during COVID, nobody was talking about exercising or losing weight or getting outside and getting some vitamin D, all of which were proven to make you get through COVID better. we're the only country in the world that allows unfettered advertising from pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
In New Zealand allows some, but not nearly to the degree. That's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Ridiculous. The pharmaceutical companies and the insurance companies are running our healthcare industry, and we just go along with it. And you didn't. You didn't go along with these things.
Heck no.
Yeah, I applaud you for that.
Heck no. I'm not a crowd follower, for one thing, and I'll make a decision on what's best for me, honestly. And in deciding to have a stem cell treatment, number one, you have to educate yourself. There's no way around it. You just have to do the work.
Yeah.
But my mission in life is to share information with people so that they can make the best decision in a stem cell treatment for themselves and their family. And so I don't try to convince you to go to one clinic or another. I know I know 3 off the top of my head that I would suggest. And if you're wanting to know about them, then you need to call them.
What's the average cost, give or take?
Oh,
so because it's a series of treatments, right? It's
yes,
it's not just
correct.
A one and done kind of thing.
No.
Okay.
So Panama is about 25.
25,000
for an autoimmune case. Okay. Autoimmune.
And is that you're talking about a 3-week period? Is that 25,000 times 3 weeks, or is that 25,000? You get 3 treatments.
No, this is in 1 week. You fly into Panama City.
Okay.
They pick you up. They whisk you through customs. You stay in a wonderful hotel that is. Breakfast is paid for, and it's this amazing breakfast buffet. And then you walk down to the lobby, and you go up the elevator in the other building, and you're at the 63rd floor of another building that's connected to your hotel. You don't ever have to leave the hotel. And that is the Stem Cell Institute in Panama. It runs about 25.
Okay.
Is Panama the leader in that? Or are there other countries that are kind of a little bit more advanced?
Japan? No, I wouldn't say more advanced, but allowed it easier. I'm going to give you an example. Japan.
Okay.
Yeah, they kind of rushed it through, and I wish we were a little bit more like Japan. But you can get stem cell treatments in Mexico, in Germany. Some of them ablate the immune system. I don't know why you do that. As
what was the word you just said?
Ablate the immune system, which means knock the immune system out, and then you have leukemia or something. And they do that with MS patients there. I have a friend who did it there. Went to Russia.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway,
so it's about $20,000 to $30,000
or double.
Oh wow!
Or double, 50,
depending
50K.
on what you're being treated for.
Yes, and depending on what you're being treated for, I know some of the one of the clinics here in Texas. I looked at possibly, since I wouldn't have to leave the country, and it was about $50,000. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. Are there any type of sounds so stupid to ask this question, but there are any kind of grants out there, or any of these organizations that you work with, stem cell, that help these patients that are that don't have the funds, that are helping them either raise the money or? That's
a great question. Or are there organizations that are trying to get insurance companies to cover some of these, or at least part of the cost?
No, and not to my knowledge is there anyone trying to get this covered by insurance. Because to get an insurance issue passed.
Yeah, well, I know. They'd rather give you some drug that causes you intense pain for 5 years.
Let me tell you how patients get enough money to do a stem cell treatment. They raise money themselves, and I have participated in raising money for some people here in Dripping Springs. One particular gentleman, and I know he would not mind whatsoever if I mentioned his name, but James Pokinghorn.
Really?
Yes. So we raised $75,000 for him the first time, and they had a second fundraiser, and he's been back a second time to Panama. But you name it, I'm in touch with so many patients. They tell me what they're doing to raise money. Some of them have skeet shoots. Some of them, their churches, their friends, their family raise the money. Online donations. And that's what I see happening is friends, family are taking the initiative to raise money for the patients, or you have the money.
It's such a shame though that there's seems to be a viable treatment out there. And there's so many roadblocks to getting this working treatment.
And time again, you've heard from people that have had positive benefit or have had benefit from these treatments, and yet it's still so hard to get.
So Dr. Reardon said if he could treat only rheumatoid arthritis, and he actually is a very good friend of mine. We're both from Kansas, and so if he could treat congestive heart failure, which is what my father passed away from, and rheumatoid arthritis patients, he'd have happy patients because he can cure that. So, and cure is a very curious word.
Sure.
We don't like to use the word cure. He also treats, this is great. They were having so many spinal cord patients come down to Panama that they did an entire separate clinic just for spinal cord injuries. And people are walking again. Yes, you heard that here, right here.
Wow.
So why would our country not allow that?
Well,
pharmaceuticals,
it's
industry.
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting.
It's disgusting.
It really is. I don't know how, as a country, we wake up and one day and go, we're just sick of putting up with this. Here's a treatment, and my government is in the way of me getting this treatment that I know will help, that dozens of people have told me will help, and my government's getting in the way. That's ridiculous.
Thousands of Americans leave the country every year to get a stem cell treatment. And there's a curious thing I also want to mention is a lot of clinics offer an off-the-shelf product here in the United States. So it's kind of a gray area with the FDA. They're not sure what to do about it yet, I don't think. And really,
meaning you can go buy something off the shelf?
It's an off-the-shelf product.
Stem cells.
They say stem cells,
right.
But if you put it under a microscope, there's probably not any live stem cells, and people do get improvement from this because what's left in that petri dish, for lack of a better word, is what those stem cells secrete. And so they secrete these healing properties. And so in my mind, what the heck? I mean, if you want to pay $5,000.
I was going to say, I think those kind of treatments are much cheaper.
Get that done. They're not always necessarily cheaper.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
They're not always necessarily
It's not like you
cheaper.
can pick it up at the CVS.
But just that's just another thing that people need to be aware of is what is your off-the-shelf treatment? What company makes that off-the-shelf treatment? What claims are they making about that?
Got to do the research.
You have to do the research and connect with other patients who have had it, hear their experiences. Don't just talk to me.
Yeah.
I'll give you a bunch of people that you can contact that went to different clinics. And so it's just a shame.
Jennifer, this has been so enlightening, and you've really just kind of filled in some gaps of things that you live and breathe this every day. And what a wonderful citizen of Dripping Springs and advocate that you are here. And we are so lucky that you sat down with us and visited with us.
I've learned a lot, and my sister's been living with it for 35 something years.
Does she live in Texas?
She lives in California, and hers is much more advanced than yours. But she's the coolest person on the planet. Yeah. She has never once said, why did this happen to me, or woe is me? She just gets up every day. She teaches Sunday school. She writes the bulletin for their church, and she's the coolest
She
person
just
on
became
the planet.
friends with me on Instagram.
Oh, did she?
She did. She followed me on Instagram. Donna and Michelle forever.
Well, so I know we could talk about this all day, but I wanted to ask you a couple things about your life that you have now. And you mentioned in your bio, you had a greenhouse that you were raising succulents that you sold all around Dripping and Wimberley.
I did, yes.
And what happened with that?
Well, I lost everything in Snowmageddon.
That's so sad.
I know. So you weren't able to plug a heat lamp out there?
We were without power for 8 days.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So we were one of the last people to get power out on Creek Road.
So do you have a generator now?
Oh, yeah, we do.
Yeah,
We've been thinking about getting a generator.
Oh, we do. So
Are you gonna bring that business back?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's my happy place.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a happy place.
Everybody that has a green thumb says that. I don't have a green thumb. I try. And I like plants, but I never can get anything to grow right.
You have a blue thumb because you wear blue all the time.
Shush up. Yeah, you caught me. I am wearing blue today. Yeah. I also wanted to ask you about your husband, Wayne, just did the Leadville 100 mountain bike race. That was just like 2 weeks ago.
It was. He is that crazy bike guy you pass on the road and get really mad at, right?
Yeah,
I'm
I probably
pointing.
see him. I probably have seen him out there.
They high-five each other as they go by.
Yeah, he competes in mountain biking, road racing, gravel bike, and cross bike, and he's almost 60.
You know what? I bet you need to connect me with him because I ride up and down Creek Road all the time.
Oh, he loves to have people to ride with because his best buddy moved to LBJ.
I'm not sure I could keep up with him, but for the listeners that don't know about Leadville, there's 12,000 feet of climbing in that race.
Oh, there's a good documentary on it too.
Is there?
It's called it's with Lance Armstrong when he won like 6 times something.
Yeah.
And I'm drawing a blank what the name is,
okay.
but you can look it up.
Yeah, just look up Lance Armstrong, Leadville 100. It'll come up.
Give you an idea of how brutal it is. That is one of the most
grueling mountain bike races in the world.
Well, he said that was a one and done for him.
Yeah.
So.
Well, good. I'm serious. I'd like to go ride with him. We usually ride on Sundays. I don't know if he's got time to do it. But.
He rides every Sunday. Are you kidding me?
I know. I know. I've seen him. Go ahead, Michelle.
Jennifer, how do people get a hold of you if they have questions about this?
Well, you can call me. I mean, I have patients. I just was counseling a patient this week who lives in Kansas.
Oh,
okay.
And you can connect with me on Facebook. I mean, I don't even mind giving my cell phone out. Is that allowed?
You know what? I tell you what. If someone wants to get a hold of you, why don't you email us?
Okay.
mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
And we will connect you.
We'll connect you.
Sure.
I think that would be a good. Thank you again so much for coming in and joining us.
I wasn't quite sure what we were going to get here, but you just opened up a whole bunch of things here, taught us a whole bunch of things that we didn't even know was going on.
Well, and I was also involved with the passage of our medical cannabis laws here for chronically ill patients. Our lobbyist, Michelle Wittenberg, was involved with that as well. And by the way, if anyone wants to hire Michelle, she does patient advocacy better than anyone that I know. So she's amazing.
That's interesting.
But we testified on behalf of the MS community for.
And that bill passed. So medical cannabis, medical marijuana is legal now in Texas
for chronically ill patients.
For chronically ill.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I don't know how you find all the time to do it.
It's my passion. So that's why I find the time to do it. And my calling.
Yeah.
And your calling.
And you're very good at it. You've made some really, really positive impacts in the world. And it sounds like you're just going to keep on doing it.
I hope so. God willing.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I really enjoyed this time with you.
Thank y'all for having me.
Elevate your living experience with M. Elliott Studio, your trusted partner in interior design, registered and licensed by the state of Texas.
You want your home to reflect your personal style and identity. Investing in a well-crafted design doesn't just beautify your home, it enriches your life.
Team principal and owner, Montana Elliott, understands the profound impact of a thoughtfully designed space. From remodeling to full design, M. Elliott Studio is the first step to unlocking your style.
Turn your aspirations into reality. Tailored to your taste and desires, M. Elliott Studio will work to create an environment that embraces your style with style.
Your space, their expertise.
melliotstudio.com 512-781-0224.
This show has been brought to you in part by the real estate pros at the Mallett Integrity Team. When you're looking to buy or sell, you need them on your side. Why settle for less when you can have real estate done right? Give them a call at 512-829-2062 or get more info at mallettintegrityteam.com.
You know you like us, so go now to Apple Podcast or Spotify and leave us a review. Why don't ya? We love your feedback and comments. Email us at mallettandmichelle@gmail.com.
Thanks for putting up with us.